Welcome back to Social Media Journalism, an online course for the University of Texas at Austin. I'm the instructor, Robert Quigley. This module is on social media ethics and what separates journalists from the rest. Well, one thing that does not separate journalists from the rest is that we all make mistakes. We made mistakes even before social media. However, errors can be much worse if we don't keep in mind our journalistic backgrounds, and we can really minimize the impact of those mistakes and make sure that bad information is not spread around quickly through social platforms. Here's an example of a mistake made because somebody was just careless. Tony Grossi is a columnist for the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and he covers the Cleveland Browns. Well, he was talking about owner Randy Lerner, and he actually said, "He's pathetic figure, the most irrelevant billionaire in the world." Well, he didn't mean to send that out to everybody. He meant to only send that as a private message. Well, that definitely would hurt his career because he has to cover that team. Here's some more mistakes. All right, this one is just gross and weird and bizarre, but this columnist for the Denver Post accidentally sent this. He meant to send it as a private message. He was having some kind of inappropriate conversation with a female follower of his on Twitter. And the embarrassing part, beyond it being embarrassing on its own for him, was that the tweet happened to show up right around the time when he was covering teenage women competing in the Olympics. And he had to explain it had nothing to do with what he was seeing as he was covering it, but instead this private conversation he was having. Here we have a very common error on social media, and that is saying that something is being closed or something's happening, and then have the source itself come out and correct the publication. And so this is the New York Police Department coming in and correcting NBC News. And this is a pretty well-known mistake here. Onward State is a college newspaper that erroneously reported that Joe Paterno, the former coach of Penn State, had died. And as you know, he is dead. However, this came out the day before he actually died. You never ever want to accidentally make somebody dead who is not. Well, not only did they tweet this, but several other news organizations, including national news organizations, retweeted them or used this information in reports to say he was dead when he was in fact not dead yet. This one is the Russian Minister of Defense saying that Syrian president had died, and in truth, the Syrian president had not been dead. And it was not even the Russian Minister of Defense. It was a fake Twitter account. However, it was picked up by several news organizations. So you have to be careful about the source of the information because it's pretty easy to fake an account. And here's just a dumb mistake by whoever was behind the KitchenAid account. And it says something about Obama's grandmother, a joke, a really, really not nice joke. And KitchenAid had to immediately apologize for that. I'm thinking that person may have lost his or her job. Be very careful about what you tweet, even on your own accounts, because you should be a respectful journalist at all times, but you could make this mistake and not realize you're still logged into the official account. And with the Sandy Hook tragedy, journalism organizations looked really bad on social media that day. In the rush to try to get information out there before everybody else, some serious errors were made. This is from BuzzFeed. They weren't alone on that, though. They were saying first possible photo of the shooter, and in fact, Ryan Lanza, the guy being shown in this photo from his Facebook profile, was not the shooter. It was his brother. And so pulling information from Facebook without verifying that information first turned out to be a real problem. The Newtown, Connecticut police had listed the name Ryan Lanza incorrectly as a suspect in the shooting. And so there was definitely a source problem there. However, the extra step of going and finding somebody's Facebook photo who may or may not be the same Ryan Lanza just because they have a similar hometown and the same name, then putting their photo out there is very dangerous, and this shows exactly why. Slate If you look at the bottom tweet, they say it looks like a Facebook page of Ryan Lanza we linked to was incorrect. So we're retracting our previous tweet, and that was based on doing the exact same thing that BuzzFeed did. And then I love that just 3 minutes later, on the tweet above, they retweet one of their own staff members saying that another Ryan Lanza on Twitter seems like he could be the guy. Lots of tweets about depression, end of the world. Way to go, Detective Slate. It was not him. It wasn't even the Ryan Lanza that was in the Facebook photo. This guy is just a random Ryan Lanza who was put in a bad situation because of Slate and many others. And journalists have to be careful about what photos they see out there. This was a picture of a great white shark swimming through a Puerto Rican street during a hurricane, right? Wrong. This is where it came from. And this is still an amazing photo from National Geographic of a large shark chasing a really kind of small kayak. However, it's just a good Photoshop job to make it look like it's in the street. And if you're working at a news organization as a social media editor, you have to be really careful about good fakes like this. Here's another example of one. During Hurricane Sandy, as it went through New York, supposedly that was a shark swimming in somebody's lawn. Again, good Photoshop job, not a real photo. So what are our core values? How do we avoid these mistakes? How do we avoid pinning the wrong person on a crime? How do we avoid sharing photos that are not correct? Is social media just so out of hand that we can't do anything about it? The answer is no. We can do something about it. We can have core values and core ethics that we stand by, and we will greatly reduce the chance of making big errors like this. So here's our values. Accuracy. And if we really do value accuracy, we have to verify the information that we share. Fairness. We don't want to just throw somebody's Facebook photo up there unless we're absolutely sure it's them. Otherwise, we may be unfair to somebody. That's just one example, though. We should always think about fairness. Completeness. Are we telling the complete story? That is a core value of journalism. And if you're not, what are you leaving out, and what does that cause an average observer from the outside to see? And even with 140 characters or a short Facebook post update, you have to be as complete as possible. We have to be honest. I think that should be an obvious one, right? Independence is important. A lot of times in social media, we become really close friends with a source, or we become close to somebody who's running an account for a business or something like that. And we have to always remember that journalists value in their independence. And so don't do favors for somebody. Don't change the way you would have tweeted something just because you like somebody. And transparency. Be very clear about who you are. Don't have some secondary hammer account where you come in swinging that's not even you. Like, in other words, don't have some fake account out there that you use to attack people. Make it very clear who you are. And respect. I think this is a really kind of an obvious one. Your mama should have taught you this. But respect is an important value for journalists. And speed. I put speed at the bottom. It is a value, especially in this age. We have to move quickly. We cannot sit around and say, well, we'll just get that tomorrow, or we'll get that later tonight like we used to. Now we have to say, okay, there's people out there talking about this story. We need to find out the answers for them and get back to them. Now, I put speed last because it shouldn't be the first thing we think of. In fact, I'd put it last in order of importance as far as we go down this list as well. However, it still is a core value. So we verify information before passing it along. That's what makes us different from the 1 billion plus other social media users. In other words, people are going to turn to us when they want to know what is really going on. And the way we do this is we attribute the information. We say where we're getting things from. Even when you're short on characters, make sure you say where you're getting information. Only report what you know. And we should never have an axe to grind. Don't go after people. You've probably heard about libel and slander in your other classes. Don't use social media as an axe to go take out people. That is not what this is about. And we don't engage in ad hominem attacks. Just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean it's okay to do that. And we don't accept favors. This kind of goes back to that independence thing. We don't market for any brand or group, and we don't retweet friends, anything like that. You need to be a independent source of news. So social media policies have been put up, and many news organizations have written in stone rules for social media use. Thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do that. I'm a little leery of those. I think that corporations have even stricter rules. Sometimes that's for legal reasons, and sometimes they're just afraid of what they might do. But I think if you're too restrictive, if you don't retweet others, or if you're not allowed to share news until it's gone through like every other channel or something like that, you defeat the purpose and you lose all these benefits we've been talking about in this class. As far as social media goes, and so you don't want to be so restrictive that you don't trust your own people. But if you're too loose, you can have a loose cannon like the KitchenAid thing or something like that. You need to tell people that there are boundaries. And here in this class, we don't want to be too strict and we don't want to have loose cannons. So it's somewhere in between, leaning on the side of letting you be trusted. So it is written down. We have a social NN policy. It's in Blackboard. Take a look under the documents section. And our credibility must be built and earned. And that's true for any news organization, but it's even true for Social NN. This is a public-facing news organization, so you have to earn our credibility. And our social policy is subject to change. And I am open to hearing where things are not something that you agree with, and we can talk it out. All right, well, that's it for social media ethics. Please go take the quiz on Blackboard,